The metallic liners chosen need to be ductile so that they readily deform and form into a linear jet, maximizing the projectile's penetration ability.
Alright y'all, welcome back to Combat Arms channel. Alright, so today we're checking out a video about the Javelin. Now this one looks pretty cool. So this is called the insane engineering of the Javelin. Now, I will say I was just a light infantryman. I never really got much time on the Javelin. We trained with it just a little bit, but I never actually got to fire it. Would have been pretty cool because everybody knows how cool the Javelin is. I mean, my first exposure I think was in Call of Duty 4. Probably with a lot of people, to be honest, but the Javelin always looked badass. And when you see it in real life, it's as badass as it feels in like a video game. So this video is pretty cool because this is from the Real Engineering YouTube channel, and they have a bunch of really sort of generally military focused stuff. And going into like the engineering of stuff that I was around all the time, it's just kind of cool to be able to dive into some of the science and physics, I guess, a little bit. So yeah, hopefully you guys are ready to learn. Let's check it out.
At this point, you know what has happened. A tyrant has invaded a peaceful, democratic nation against all logic and morality.
Yeah, I didn't really preface this, but I would imagine they're going to sort of focus heavily on the war in Ukraine because we've seen how important those sort of anti-tank and especially even like ground-to-air missile systems are in a conflict like that.
An invasion of a sovereign European nation of this magnitude has not been seen since 1939. The invasion of Poland and World War II at large was dominated by the tank. A technology that shaped the battlefield of World War II. A technology born out of the trenches of World War I. A war defined by artillery and machine guns. The tank served as a weaponized shell to burst through defensive positions. Poland's resistance to this new battlefield-defining weapon relied on light infantry-carried anti-tank rifles, towed anti-tank guns, and mechanized anti-tank vehicles.
Those are cool.
Those anti-tank rifles were attempting to solve one crucial problem.
I think like a video focused on this, and I'm not sure if anybody has done it, but a video focused on these anti-tank rifles would be freaking sick. I'm not even sure what caliber it is. It looks like it's generally like a 50 cal or something, maybe like a 20 millimeter. I don't know. I mean, I imagine it's got to be a massive caliber to try and have a rifle that would defeat a tank. Yeah, it's going to have some pretty big rounds, but I kind of want to learn a little bit more about these because they're really, really fascinating. Imagine getting to shoot one in real life, though.
A weapon that could be mass manufactured and put into the hands of individual soldiers. A lightweight piece of equipment that could be quickly moved around the battlefield. The tanks the Polish most commonly faced were the German Panzer I and II and the Soviet T-26, both of which had maximum armor thicknesses between 13 and 20 millimeters. The Polish, in anticipation of this new threat, had developed the Model 35 anti-tank rifle.
That's clean.
A lightweight, high-powered rifle capable of penetrating 20 millimeters of armor from 300 meters away. However,
I don't really have a good appreciation for how much 20 millimeters is, so let's go ahead and convert it to inches. I know airsoft BBs are like 6 millimeters. Okay, so 20 millimeters is 0.8, basically 0.8 inches. So not that thick, but for, you know, just like steel, it's going to be pretty strong and it's probably going to defeat most calibers, as you can imagine. So, okay, I was expecting it to be a little bit thicker. I don't know why I laughed at that, but I was expecting it to be a little bit thicker, so, okay. But, yeah, these old tanks were really nothing too special, so I guess that does make sense.
Projectile that exhausted its kinetic energy in penetrating the armor, with little left over on the other side, was of little use. Lucky shots to critical engine components located on the rear of the tank may cripple it. But if the Germans or Soviets discovered this rifle had been manufactured in such large numbers, countering it was as simple as adding slightly more armor to critical areas.
Yeah, true.
Poland fell in a single month. Today, we are 2 months into Russia's invasion of Ukraine, and despite being equipped with modern tanks, with modern reactive armor, they have made little progress. The nature of war has changed radically since the days of the Blitzkrieg across Europe, where once tanks rampaged unimpeded through forest, field and town, in the modern battlefield
Yeah, for
against
real.
a well-equipped enemy.
That's why it was
Lone
scary.
tanks have become large, high-priority targets for advanced infantry-carried missile systems, capable of taking out even the most advanced armor from miles away.
Damn, look at that.
While Russia's
Yeah, I'll say being light infantry, I did feel pretty comfortable when, I mean, I felt much more comfortable when we had a decent amount of anti-tank weapons. You know, a law, you're not going to use a law on a modern tank. You can, it's not going to do much. An AT-4, you know, now we're talking, but yeah, like a Javelin or something, you feel pretty comfortable when one of those is around, especially as part of a defense.
military incompetence cannot be ignored. The importance of these lightweight anti-tank devices cannot be understated.
Lightweight.
Countries around the world have developed their
Excuse
own
me?
variants of these weapons.
Those are cool.
All highly capable anti-tank devices, and many are in the hands of Ukrainian soldiers defending their country against a tyrant. But one has become a symbol of this war. Like the Spitfire of the Battle of Britain, it may not be the most numerous, but it has become an icon of a country under siege.
Oh yeah.
Saint Javelin of Ukraine, a weapon purpose-built for a Cold War scenario, designed to be put into the hands of individual soldiers.
Damn.
Purpose-built
Jeez.
to take out wave after wave of Russian tanks. This is the insane engineering of the FGM-148 Javelin.
Okay, damn, what an intro. I'm hyped. Especially seeing the footage. That thing is freaking lethal. Powerful.
The Javelin began its development in the latter years of the Cold War, designed to fulfill exactly the role the Polish anti-tank rifle sought to fill, a lightweight and mobile anti-tank weapon that would allow individual soldiers to quickly target tanks and escape to cover before being seen. In total, the Javelin system weighs just 22 kilograms, light enough for a single soldier to move around the battlefield,
Yeah.
enabling guerrilla warfare tactics to be used against an invading army.
I mean, comparing it to like the tow platform or something like that, yeah, it is pretty nice to be able to like move it around. It's not lightweight. I wouldn't say it's lightweight for, you know, an infantryman. They're going to be lugging it around for a little bit potentially. But yeah, if you're given a Javelin, hopefully you're not going too far with that thing because you're going to start feeling it pretty quickly. But yeah, it is nice to have a platform like that you can move around, even just, you know, put inside of a vehicle. The tow, you know, it can be moved pretty easily, but yeah, sometimes it can be kind of a logistical thing to make sure you can move that. So a Javelin is a really, really nice option. And just being able to move it like on foot on the battlefield is of course going to be nice. I mean, because you have to think the tank just moves slightly behind cover and you have like a tow system, you're not going to be able to like move it over that easily. So having a Javelin is nice to be able to maneuver that thing on foot.
The Javelin is so much more than a simple rocket-propelled explosive. Like the RPG, the Javelin is a fire and forget weapon, capable of guiding itself to the most vulnerable region of a tank from miles away and bypassing even the most advanced reactive armor, allowing soldiers to target, fire, and escape to safety. In order to do this, the Javelin employs ingenious bits of technology. To begin, the soldiers need a method of spotting and locking onto a target. This starts with the night vision sight lens, located here. Despite being called the night vision lens, this device provides soldiers with a 4 times and 9 times magnification infrared sight that works in both day and night, allowing soldiers to spot enemy tanks from a distance, even in low visibility situations. This lens is part of the Command Launch Unit, or CLU, which attaches to the expendable rocket tubes that contain the round. The fact the tube is detachable makes the CLU by itself an incredibly useful piece of equipment.
That is
Soldiers
true.
frequently carried these units on patrols in Afghanistan and Iraq when the threat from enemy armor was low, simply because they provide...
Yeah, so one person in my squad or one person in the platoon usually would have a clue system on them. Now, that was usually to support the Javelin if we needed to use the Javelin, but I have seen units actually use it as an observation tool, which is pretty freaking smart. I mean, you have to carry it anyway, so you might as well get some use out of it. And we kind of did that a little bit with our thermal machine gun optics. We would use it to sort of scan and, you know, do our recon and what have you. But yeah, if you're forced to carry the clue, you might as well use it, you know, for some observation. So I did see that. It wasn't really something my unit did, but it is pretty smart.
excellent infrared sighting capability. Once connected to a launch tube, the soldier can flip this switch from off to night mode.
Oh, nice
the cooling
graphics.
unit of the CLU will begin to cool down the infrared detectors to their required temperature, taking 2 to 3 minutes. The day mode switch provides sighting capability, but cannot activate the seeker.
That whole like animation is like really impressive.
The seeker. Once the night vision sight is adequately cooled, the soldier has full missile capability. From here, they have several selections to make using the left-hand grip. A range of sight options can be selected using the sight selection switch located here, switching between the wider 4x sight or the more narrow 9x sight, and between night and day imaging settings. There is also a filter switch, which applies a filter to the night vision sight to make enemy detection of the infrared sight more difficult.
The research is really impressive, but I gotta say the animations really help with this kind of stuff. Like, they should hire YouTubers to do like training videos for a lot of this stuff, to be honest.
While the focus setting simply adjusts the focus of the sight. Once a target has been identified, the user can flip a protective cover and press and hold the seeker trigger on the left-hand grip, which activates the seeking locking sequence. This also activates the firing trigger on the right-hand grip. Over here, the user can select a firing mode with 2 options, direct and top, which change the trajectories depending on the object being targeted or the surrounding area. The top trajectory is ideal as it targets the least protected section of a tank, but top may not always be possible. The target could be under an overpass or some other obstacle. This directional pad allows the user to adjust gates manually around the perimeter of the target's profile. This is essentially visually training the seeker on the target. Once locked, the image is saved into the seeker, and the user can pull the trigger. From here,
using a Javelin really makes you feel like powerful. It just, I mean, when you look at those the sighting system and whatnot and the options you have, it makes you feel like you're like an Apache going on a gun run or something. I don't know. It's just really cool, and to be able to have that in a sort of, you know, mobile package, it's pretty sick. And again, for like the war in Ukraine, it is a very valuable tool to be able to implement against some Russian armor.
Things happen extremely quickly. A launch motor fires, pushing the seeker out of the tube with just enough force to get it clear of anyone nearby, about 4.5 meters. This minimizes recoil and makes the system incredibly easy to use, even allowing it to be launched from inside buildings without fear of the backblast turning the building's interior into a pressure cooker. As the seeker leaves the tube, 2 separate spring-loaded fins deploy. The front set of 8 fins, referred to as the wings, provide lift and stabilization to the seeker, while the rear 4 are controlled by the flight computer to guide the seeker to its target.
So badass.
The control fins are also helped along by 4 thrust vector control vanes around the nozzle of the rocket motor, which can vector the exhaust of the rocket to provide additional control. At this point, the user's job is done. They can get back behind cover.
I think those cost like 80,000
which
each.
is especially useful after giving away their position while firing.
I think that's what Call of Duty 4 said, 80,000 each. I think that's what I remember. Like when you die, it gives you like the facts and whatnot.
The seeker is controlling itself at this point. The image initially locked into the guidance electronics is used to guide the seeker towards its target.
So cool.
But the seeker also has its own infrared imaging camera mounted on its nose. The goal of the guidance computer is to keep this image in the center frame using the control fins and thrust vectoring vanes.
That's like...
To do this, it uses pattern recognition algorithms to
it seems like a dumb smart bomb, if that makes sense.
Keep track of the target and updates the target reference image every frame to make
Seems
the job
so simple.
of tracking the continually changing image as easy as possible. As the seeker closes in on the target, a sequence of events occurs incredibly quickly. The seeker has a 2-stage shaped charge. Shaped charges are fascinating. They use fluid dynamics and the kinetic energy of the blast to slice through armor. Shaped charges consist of the charge itself shaped with a hollow indentation where a metal liner is placed. When the charge is detonated, a pressure wave forms behind this metal liner, deforming and accelerating the metal into a lance-like jet of ultra-fast metallic particles that cut through armor like butter. Contrary to the...
I do remember learning about shape charges like a long time ago, even before I joined the military. I think people had sort of made like makeshift shape charges, like maybe in like World War II or maybe even World War I. But yeah, once they determined that, yeah, you see that sort of design in a lot of different weapon systems now.
Shape charge's other name, HEAT, which stands for High Explosive Anti-Tank, this is a purely kinetic mechanism. The shaped charge effectively creates a hypersonic projectile at point-blank range. The metallic liners chosen need to be ductile so that they readily deform and form into a linear jet, maximizing the projectile's penetration ability. A brittle fracture of the liner would result in large chunks of particulated metal that would reduce the penetrating power of the metal. But this needs to be balanced with the velocity of the jet, which will lower with heavier elements. The Javelin itself has 2 stages. The first stage uses a molybdenum liner, while the main charge uses copper. This 2-stage design allows the Javelin to deal with modern reactive armor more effectively. Reactive armor are those strange box-like structures you see on modern tanks, and they were created specifically to deal with shaped charges.
It's so funny seeing them get
Reactive
installed.
armor works by placing an explosive charge between 2 metal plates. When a jet from a shaped charge strikes the upper plate, it detonates the inner explosive. You may think this could damage the tank, but the tank's lower armor is more than capable of dealing with the relatively blunt pressure formed by the reactive armor detonation.
So cool.
The outer plate then flies outwards to disrupt the incoming jet, while the shockwave formed by the detonation also breaks up the stream of metal approaching the tank.
Wow.
The first stage of the Javelin is designed to trigger these reactive armor boxes before the main charge detonates. The second charge can then cut through the inner armor unimpeded. Many modern tanks do have secondary defenses to protect against threats like this, like Russia's active protection system, Arena. This system uses radar to detect incoming threats and
this is
activates a
cool.
buckshot-like munition that strikes the incoming threat. This detonates the shaped charge far enough away from the tank that the jet disperses into too large of an area to effectively pierce the armor. However, the Arena active protection system struggles to deal with top-down attacks, something the Javelin is designed to do. And we are starting to see photos of rudimentary cages placed on top of Russian tanks to defend against top-down attacks. It's important to remember that the footage we are seeing is going to be skewed in favor of Ukraine. This is an ongoing battle where morale is vital. We aren't going to see battles where anti-tank munitions failed. The age of the tank is far from over. It's still a vital tool that has advanced with new modern threats. However, one thing is for sure, Russia is losing an astronomical number of tanks. Russia's incompetence has been their own worst enemy. Fuel logistics have left tanks stranded on the roads, air cover against drones has been lacking, and all too frequently we are seeing tanks without adequate infantry and artillery support to deter and defend against these anti-tank munitions. The importance of military tactics cannot be understated.
I mean, you got to think it's pretty cool for an engineering YouTube channel to talk about how important tactics are, because they're going into like the chemistry and the physics and the science, but they're explaining you can defeat these weapon systems if you're tactically proficient. If you're basically reducing your exposure to these weapon systems, you can sort of hide your vulnerabilities and mitigate these weapon systems that way. You know, maybe adding camouflage or even just appropriate dispersion, having tactics so you can support these vehicles or this armor with infantry so you can be able to maneuver and basically prevent them from just keep sending volley after volley on your armor. So as a light infantryman, I can really appreciate how they're sort of putting that emphasis on the tactics versus the equipment. Of course, having the equipment and the technology is nice. It's nice for it to be able to defeat a lot of different types of armor, but you can defeat it just by being tactically proficient.
Leadership and logistical support makes all the difference. In our ongoing series on Nebula, we explore the exemplary tactics of the RAF during the Battle of Britain. In this month's episode, we explore the doubting system, using our 3D recreation of a Battle of Britain command room to show you exactly how data was disseminated and acted on quickly to allow British pilots to intercept German planes within.
Okay, I think I'm gonna have to check out this video. I'm not sure. Yeah, I think they're kind of just talking about that. I'm gonna have to check out that video because that sounds really, really interesting. And of course, like the animations and the graphics are just like, they're really, really impressive. Like they're literally remaking this entire room. Seeing this, like the clips of this, is like super, super fascinating. And I would like to sort of understand how they were organizing everything because it looks very, very complicated. But a very, very cool video. Again, he's able to go into all of the science behind these weapon systems, sort of explain how people have been trying to counter them, even like the rudimentary ways of them trying to counter it. So obviously it's a nice weapon system to have, especially from the infantry perspective. It's nice to be able to have these mobile platforms that will allow you to defeat a tank. You can have one person defeating an entire tank. Like, that's pretty impressive. And we've seen its utility in the war in Ukraine. And yeah, it's been pretty invaluable. I think like when the US Marine Corps was getting rid of their tanks, this was something that they were talking about as far as just making sure the Marine Corps is as sort of light and maneuverable as possible, putting more emphasis on this sort of stuff, putting more emphasis on, you know, some of the technology to support the infantrymen as far as the anti-tank weapons and the drones. Of course, fighting a tank with another tank is nice, but I mean, why would you want it to go to that where you're putting these tanks out there? If you could have one person sort of on a hilltop or, you know, in this sort of position to be able to destroy this armor by himself or maybe with a buddy, then that's pretty awesome. You can have a bunch of these infantrymen sort of dispersed around this area, defending this area with these anti-tank weapons because they can affect these tanks at a pretty good distance. So they're able to stop them before they actually get to those lines, you know, when the sort of tank-to-tank warfare actually starts going down. Of course, you don't want to expose your tanks to that if you don't need to. If you can just have, you know, a dumb grunt like me being able to stop this armor before it even gets close to our position, that is pretty cool. And that's going to be very, very disheartening for the enemy. And of course, we can see in the war in Ukraine is a very, very good example. They're putting those weapons to use, as we can probably see with all the pictures and videos and whatnot. So yeah, of course, some lessons learned. We've seen like some pretty weird stuff, like people putting like pieces of wood on the tanks and whatnot to try and add a little bit. So I'm not exactly sure the science behind that. Maybe it makes sense, but yeah, it's interesting to see some of the rudimentary things that they're using to try and counter these really sort of expensive weapon systems. But yeah, let me know what you guys think. This is a really, really cool video and a very, very cool YouTube channel. So of course, I'll put the original video down in the description so you guys can go and check it out and give this channel some love. I mean, I think they're doing pretty well already. They have over 3 million subscribers. I mean, I think that's definitely deserved with like the graphics and animations and research and science that went into this. Definitely deserved. And yeah, they look like they have some really cool videos. So I'm going to subscribe right now. If you guys have checked out this channel previously and you have some of their videos you can recommend, definitely throw them down below or throw them in the Discord so I can check them out. But looks like a cool channel and I'm probably going to get stuck on this one for a while. But hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know what you think. If you guys have used the Javelin system or had some exposure to it, let me know what your experiences were. Again, I never got to shoot it. It looks pretty badass. You probably feel pretty badass using this. And if you guys have used it on some armor, that would be, like, especially in like, you know, actual combat, that would be pretty crazy to hear about as well. But yeah, it's just a really fascinating weapon system. So to be able to actually go into the science, even the science of like the missile itself, that's pretty cool. But hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Hopefully you guys learned something. I definitely did. And I've always had a good appreciation for the Javelin. But now that appreciation is just a little bit higher because I kind of understand it a little bit better. But that's it for this video. I will see y'all in the next one.